Welcome back, everyone, to Behind the Arc Basketball. Back in May and June, I released my first rankings video of the college basketball way too early top 25 rankings for the 2020-21 college basketball season. Now, if you didn't catch up with my first two rankings videos back in May and June, feel free to catch up and watch those as well. I'll put those rankings videos down in the description below this video. Now we're into the month of October at the time of this recording, and I'm releasing my final preseason rankings video right before the start of the college basketball season, which will tip off on Wednesday, November 25th, 2020. Before I get into my top 25, though, I expanded the list to 20 teams that just missed my top 25 from number 45 through 26. We will take a look at that first. At number 45 happens to be the Northern Iowa Panthers, as the leading scorer from the Missouri Valley is back, A.J. Green, who averaged over 19 points per game this past season. The Panthers are looking for redemption to win the 2021 Missouri Valley Tournament title. They were bounced from the Missouri Valley quarterfinals this past season against Drake. I feel like it's going to be a fight for the top three teams here in the conference, which I predict the Bradley Braves will go number 3 in the conference this season, as they were the 2020 Missouri Valley Conference Tournament champions. Loyola Chicago, I predict at number 2, which they returned 5 seniors back to the roster. And I predict Northern Iowa to be the top team in the Valley this season. I like UNI at number 45. At number 44, it happens to be the South Carolina Gamecocks. Leading scorer, A.J. Lawson, he is back for South Carolina. This team should only continue to get better from last season where they were on the bubble. I like them at number 44. At number 43, happens to be the BYU Cougars. Head coach Mark Pope lost their top 3 players in the offseason, but solid transfers coming in as well that Mark Pope able to grab in the offseason, with 7'3" big man from Purdue, Matt Harms, coming in along with Brandon Averett from Utah Valley. That should be able to keep BYU right in the mix to be a part of the NCAA tournament for 2021. I predict them second in the WCC. I like the Cougars at number 43. At number 42, I predict here the Miami Hurricanes, as the Canes will have 5 seniors in their roster for this upcoming season. I feel like they should be able to take a big step up from last season. I like Miami at number 42. At 41, happens to be the Georgia Yellow Jackets here, as we'll stick with the ACC. Georgia Tech returning their top 3 scorers from last season with Michael DeVoe, Jose Alvarado, and Moses Wright. Georgia Tech won their last 6 out of 7 games, getting red hot towards the end of last season. That included a win against number 5 ranked Louisville as well. I've got Georgia Tech at number 41. At number 40, I've got the Oklahoma Sooners. Leading scorer Christian Doolittle graduated from the program, but the Sooners still having back their number 2, 3, 4, and 5 scores from this past season. I like Oklahoma at number 40. At number 39, the Seton Hall Pirates I've got right here, as they'll be bringing back their number 2 scorer, number 2 rebounder from last season, Sandro Mamukelashvili. He is back for the Pirates. Bryce Aiken, he was a solid pickup in the transfer portal from Harvard, as he plays point guard. He'll be able to replace some of the production lost with Miles Powell from Seton Hall, who left the team, and Miles Powell happened to be the leading scorer, as he was just an absolute gem this past season for Seton Hall here. I like him at number 39 this year. At number 38, we get the Oklahoma State Cowboys. So Oklahoma State still has that 2021 NCAA tournament ban. They have appealed that ban, but the appeal has not been going as fast as it had been hoped for, so it doesn't look too promising right now. So currently, at the time of this video, Oklahoma State still has that 2021 NCAA tournament ban. But huge news in the offseason, even with the tournament ban assessed to Oklahoma State, number 1 freshman recruit coming in, Cade Cunningham, decided to stay with the Cowboys, and he has potential to be the National Player of the Year this season, along with being a possible overall number 1 draft pick in the 2021 NBA draft. If the supporting cast alongside Cunningham can make the jump this season as well, I feel like Oklahoma State can even jump up further in these rankings here. I like the Cowboys right now at number 38. At number 37 happens to be the Stanford Cardinal. Coming off a phenomenal freshman season, Tyrell Terry for Stanford. He happened to decide that he will head over to the NBA draft. That dropped them a bunch of spots from the last rankings video in June, unfortunately, for Stanford. But the good news, though, is that the Cardinal will be bringing back last season's leading scorer, Oscar da Silva. He's going to be back along with a 5-star freshman recruit coming out along to Stanford here with Zaire Williams, who should be able to make an immediate impact. I like Stanford at 37. At number 36, I've got the Indiana Hoosiers. In the offseason, Indiana losing their number 3 scorer, Justin Smith, to Arkansas. And this is the player to watch out for this season. The Big Ten is loaded with a bunch of impact players here, but one of them to watch out for sure is Trace Jackson Davis for the Hoosiers. who, in my opinion, has breakout potential written all over it here for Trayce Jackson-Davis. In the loaded Big Ten, I predict Trayce Jackson-Davis to be a first-team All-Big Ten player this season. Really underrated. I like Indiana at 36. At number 35, I got the Florida Gators, as they happen to lose their starting point guard, number 3 scorer Andrew Nembhard, the transfer over Gonzaga. And also I had to drop Florida because of LSU in the conference, as LSU was able to regain 3 of their players who decided to withdraw from the NBA draft. So I had LSU and Florida swap positions during my last ranking as far as 2 teams from the SEC here, with LSU going up, Florida going down. I like Florida at number 35. Sticking with the SEC here, at number 34 happens to be the Arkansas Razorbacks. Their number 3 scorer for Indiana, transferring over to Arkansas with Justin Smith. And also Eric Musselman benefiting tremendously as well with other transfers as well to build his lineup around the season. Coming into Arkansas, Jalen Tate, who is tied for first in the Horizon League this past season in average steals per game. Also Vance Jackson coming along from New Mexico, averaged over 11 points per game last season. He was a top 80 recruit coming out of high school in the class of 2016. The big loss, though, in the offseason was Isaiah Joe. He announced late that he would declare for the NBA draft and not stay at Arkansas. If Isaiah Joe had stayed at Arkansas, this team would have been a top 25 team. They dropped back to 34 in my list, though. Now move on, number 33. This team is talented. They got talent all over the court from the Memphis Tigers. In the offseason, getting some key pieces here to work their way up in these rankings. 6'11" big man, 5-star recruit Musa Cisse coming along to Memphis along with a big-time transfer. Landers Nolley, the second leading scorer for Virginia Tech this past season, as he has been granted eligibility to play sophomore season for Memphis. This team has the talent on the court for the Tigers. Big question, can Penny Hardaway put it together this season? I like Memphis at number 33. And number 32, going with the Providence Friars here from Friartown, as Providence bringing in 2 impact transfers that sat out last season for head coach Ed Cooley. Jared Bynum coming to Providence here. He's from St. Joseph's. He should be able to replace Lawan Pipkins, who played point guard last season and graduated in his only year after transferring from UMass to Providence to play his senior season for the Friars. Also coming in to PC, Noah Horchler from North Florida. He is in the mix as well. The player here that will be returning back to the lineup for Providence that has a great chance to break out, in my opinion. That happens to be David Duke this season for the Providence Friars. I like Providence at number 32 in the list. Taking a look right now, number 31 happens to be the Richmond Spiders, as the nation's number 2 ball stealer from this past season, Jacob Gilyard, withdrew from the NBA draft to head back to Richmond. Spiders, they happen to have 5 seniors in their starting 5, but that was until this week when Richmond's guard and captain for their team, Nick Sherrod, tore his ACL during practice, and he happens to be out for the remainder of the season. Huge loss right there for Richmond, as they will happen to lose the Atlantic 10's top 3-point shooter with Sherrod, as he is done for the year. I like the Spiders right now on the list at number 31. Now my rankings at number 30. Talking about a red-hot offense. You got one here with the Alabama Crimson Tide with year 2 under head coach Nate Oates. I feel like this season should be able to translate much better defensively and much better offensively, cutting down the turnovers as well. The number 2 and 3 scorers back for the Crimson Tide with Jaden Shackelford and John Petty Jr. Both these players averaged over 14.5 points per game last season. Watch out for Alabama once again to be a top 5 offense in college basketball. I like them at number 30. Now at number 29 happens to be the Michigan Wolverines. Michigan's leading scorer. Big news here, Isaiah Livers is back from Michigan. The Wolverines last season went 14-7 with Livers on the court. However, without them, they struggled, only going 5-5. Huge news that he came back to Ann Arbor. Michigan's at number 29. Number 28, I got the UConn Huskies. I'm loving what head coach Dan Hurley is doing, building up this program once again to the good old days back in the 2000s here. UConn bringing in a key transfer over from URI. Number 3 scorer, number 2 rebounder for Rhode Island last season, Tyrese Martin. He was able to be granted a waiver to play this season for the Huskies. Actually, it was head coach Dan Hurley who recruited Tyrese Martin to URI. And now, once again, Dan Hurley able to get him to transfer from URI over to UConn. The player, though, to watch out this season, in their first season back in the Big East, happens to be James Bouknight for the UConn Huskies. I feel like he's going to be a star in the making here for UConn, one of the top players in the Big East. I like the Huskies at 28. Now at number 27 happens to be the Louisville Cardinals. As Louisville in my June rankings was in my top 25, I bounced them down to 27, though, due to a couple of teams getting players to withdraw from the NBA draft and gaining spots here in the list. So Louisville lost like a ton of pieces in the offseason. Head coach Chris Mack, though, benefiting tremendously, though. Transfer portal in the offseason, picking up one of the top transfers all of college basketball, Carleigh Jones from Radford. 2020 Big South Player of the Year, averaged 20 points per game, 5.5 assists per game this past season for the Highlanders. Also, they'll be bringing in Charles Minlin as a transfer from San Francisco, averaging over 14 points per game for the Dons this past season. As far as the Cardinals here, coming back to the program for Chris Mack will be center Malik Williams and the two sophomore guards, David Johnson and Samuel Williamson. I like David Johnson here to be the breakout player this season for Louisville. He had a big first half last season against Duke. The players returning didn't play like a ton of minutes here for Louisville, as they're going to get way more minutes this season here, and I like DJ's opportunities to rise, and for him to be the go-to scorer this season for the Louisville Cardinals. For David Johnson, I've got them 27 on the list. And at number 26 here, the final team before the top 25 rankings, for the Houston Cougars, I got at 26. Houston happened to suffer a major loss in these rankings when it was announced their number 2 rebounder and starter, Fabian White, will most likely miss this upcoming season due to an ACL injury. The Cougars, however, able to get back Dejan Jarreau, who happened to withdraw from the NBA draft, expected to be a starter for this team this season. I feel like the Cougars are going to go small ball for this upcoming season. They are loaded from the perimeter, and they also lost their leading rebounder, Nate Hinton, who went to the NBA draft. The Cougars, around the perimeter, absolutely loaded here. Leading scorer, Caleb Mills. He got hot late last season, has breakout potential written all over him this season. I like him this season, along with Quentin Grimes, a former Kansas Jayhawk, as he has the chance to break out as well. And head coach Kelvin Sampson adding into the program a transfer from Idaho, Cameron Tyson, who shot the ball almost 43% from behind the arc 2 seasons ago at Idaho. Houston, still my pick to win the American, even though Memphis is right up there now, along with them, as they've got Houston at number 26. And now it's time that you've been all waiting for. We'll take a look now at the top 25s individually. We'll go over each and every single one of these teams, as we'll take a look now first at number 25. 25 on the list, Oregon Ducks here. Oregon suffered major loss in the offseason there. Senior leading scorer in the Pac-12, Peyton Pritchard, their point guard, graduated. Head coach Dana Altman, though, bringing in experienced players here in the transfer portal, and just did a tremendous job once again bringing in transfers for Oregon. So they're going to get UNLV grad transfer Amari Hardy, who averaged 14.5 points per game. Happens to be the older brother, Jaden Hardy, who's predicted to be a top 5 recruit for the class of 2021. Oregon bringing in a transfer from Rutgers, Eugene Amarui. He had just under 14 points per game, 7.2 rebounds per game back in 2018-19 for Rutgers, along with a transfer from Duquesne, Eric Williams Jr., who averaged 14 per game and 7.6 rebounds per game back in 2018-19 as well for the Duquesne Dukes. The perimeter, though, for Oregon, I feel like even though losing Peyton Pritchard, they're still going to be solid with their second and third scorers kept on the roster, with Chris Duarte and Will Richardson coming back. I predict Will Richardson's going to have a breakout season this year for Oregon. And then also the freshman players, who's going to have a much-needed, indeed, step up here coming back as sophomores. One of them, 6'11" big man, and Folly Dante. He also will return down in the post here, looks for more of an impact of a season. I like Oregon at number 25. Now we'll take a look at the list now. Number 24, you get the LSU Tigers, as they move right up the list from the last rankings video in June. LSU benefiting tremendously. Decisions in their number 2, 4, and 5 scores with Trendon Wofford, Javante Smart, and Darius Days to all withdraw from the NBA draft, and that was a huge decision by the 3 of them here to put LSU into the top 25 and number 24 on the list. So that means they're the 3rd biggest jumpers here on my rankings list as well from my last video in June. So the Tigers lost their top scorer, Skylar Mays, to graduation, though Trent Wofford, he's going to be the go-to player this season, looking to build off his spectacular freshman season, who averaged 13.6 points per game, 7.2 rebounds per game. He will be the leader for LSU this season. I predict that Trent Wofford's going to have another stellar season under his belt for LSU, and I predict him as well to be a first-team All-SEC player this season. Getting the trio Watford, Smart, and Days back, this is huge here for LSU to put them into my top 25. And now we'll take a look at number 23 in a deep and loaded Big Ten conference this year. We get the first team out of it. So we get the Ohio State Buckeyes. And Buckeyes suffering massive losses in the offseason, but able to stock up in the transfer portal with head coach Chris Holtmann. So leaving the program, leading scorer, leading rebounder, the biggest loss, Kayla Wesson decided to leave Columbus for the NBA draft. His brother Andre Wesson won't be back due to graduation as well. DJ Carton transferred from Ohio State over to Marquette. Luther Muhammad transferred over to Arizona State. And Alonzo Gaffney also transferred and left the program as well. That left 5 spots to fill in the offseason for head coach Chris Holtmann. But coming back for the season for the Buckeyes, they'll return 2 starters, CJ Walker and Kyle Young. EJ Liddell, he will look to take a step forward for this upcoming season to help out the Buckeyes. He had a couple big games during his freshman year. And guard Dwayne Washington, who happened to be a top 10 3-point shooter in the conference, he'll be back to help out the Buckeyes around the perimeter. But here are the transfers they were able to access in the offseason. The biggest one, though, happens to be Seth Towns, 6'8" forward from Harvard. The big question, though, is will Seth Towns be ready to go and will he be healthy this season? That is the question there for Seth Towns. In order to be a part of this top 25, they are indeed going to have to get a healthy and good Seth Towns back here for the Ohio State Buckeyes, as he averaged 16 points per game back in the 2017-18 season for the Harvard Crimson. Another transfer coming in this season for the Buckeyes, Justice Suing from the California Golden Bears, averaged over 14 points per game and 6 rebounds per game back in 2018-19. And a third transfer coming in should be able to help out from the bench, which happens to be a guard, Abel Porter from Utah State. So that's where I like the Buckeyes at 23 in the list right now. We'll move on. Number 22 on the list. If you want a sleeper this season, you got one. The St. Louis Billikens. I am riding St. Louis high this season, by the way. So I get to watch this team in action last season back in March. They traveled to Rhode Island to take on URI, and I went to the game and watched it, and St. Louis controlled that entire game here. This team will return their entire starting 5 from this past season, and they got on a red hot 5-game winning streak to close out last season as well. Both of their 3-year starters, guard Jordan Goodwin and center Hassan French, will both be back for the Billikens. St. Louis, this team is tough. This team is gritty. Monsters forcing the boards. French had a career-high 24 rebounds against Belmont last November, while Goodwin, he was basically unstoppable against Richmond last season, dropping down 26 points and 9 rebounds in a 74-58 victory for St. Louis on the road, by the way, at Richmond. French and Goodwin both led the A-10 statistically by going number 1 and number 2 in the conference this past season in rebounds per game. Also heading back for his senior season for St. Louis will be forward Javante Perkins. He averaged just over 20 points per game during the final 7 games of last season. Point guard Yuri Collins, he had a spectacular freshman season. He'll be back as well as Collins. Led all college basketball freshmen in assists per game last season. And also the Billikens will get back a healthy guard with Gibson Jimerson back from injury. He played 10 games, averaging 11 points per game, just before suffering a season-ending foot injury. And also they'll get back a helpful bench scorer with second-year player, 6'10" forward Jimmy Bell Jr. Do not sleep on the Billikens right here for next season. I get to see them play against Rhode Island, completely control that game. This team's gritty. This team can go up and get rebounds. If they can improve for their free throw shooting, St. Louis could be the next NCAA tournament Cinderella. I've got them at number 22 on the list. Now we'll take a look here. Number 21 goes to a team that was on pace to make the NCAA tournament. A historical season this past season for the Rutgers Scarlet Knights at number 21. Unfortunately, the tournament was canceled due to COVID-19. They have another shot at it here in 2021. They have a good chance, in my opinion, to make this season's tournament. So one of the big surprises from this past season, Rutgers making history, cracking the AP Top 25 poll for the first time since 1979, which now leaves Oregon State with the longest AP Top 25 drought dating back to 1990. For this upcoming season, Rutgers will be returning their top 2 scorers with guards Ron Harper Jr. and Geo Baker. The Scarlet Knights also returning their top 7 out of 8 scorers from this past season. Rutgers also landing in a 4-star recruit with Cliff Omoruyi. Happens to be the highest ranked recruit for Rutgers in the past 12 years. If all goes well here, Rutgers will be back in the NCAA tournament for the first time in 30 years. I've got them at number 21. Now at number 20 in the list, it happens to be the Texas Longhorns. So I'm going to say this. There's going to be a major problem this season if Texas happens to land an NIT bid and not an NCAA tournament bid. There's no reason why Texas should miss this upcoming season's NCAA tournament, because everything right here is laid out right in front of them for the Longhorns to have a successful season. Texas will lose 0 players from the roster. They'll bring back 12 players from last season's team, and 11 of those players started at least one game last season. All they got to do, just put the pieces together and find a star player. That's what they lacked this past season, was a star player. They could possibly find one when incoming freshman, 5-star recruit Greg Brown coming over to Austin. Anything less than an NCAA tournament bid, in my opinion, for Texas this season would most likely mean the end of the Shaka Smart era for the Texas Longhorns. I've got them at number 20. Now we move on to number 19 on the list, as it happens to be the Arizona State Sun Devils. This perimeter is going to be fire this season, I predict. One of the top 3-point shooting teams from the perimeter here. Top scoring teams as well. So they're going to be bringing back Remy Martin. Huge decision for him to withdraw from the NBA draft, as he has potential to be a National Player of the Year candidate. Remy Martin averaged 19 points per game this past season, alongside with a sixth man on the roster this past season, Alonzo Verge. He averaged 14.6 points per game off the bench for Arizona State. The Sun Devils also bringing along a 5-star freshman guard with Josh Christopher right into the mix, able to produce right from the start. I expect for Christopher for the Sun Devils. This team's going to be tough to stop around the perimeter, but inside, there's still a lot of questions, though, as they lost their leading rebounder, Romello White. He transferred over to Ole Miss. ASU lacks a big man on the team, and that's the thing that they're lacking here, is they need players to step up this season and make a name for themselves for the Sun Devils. But they were saved by these two decisions of Remy Martin, Alonzo Verge, to withdraw from the NBA draft and come back for another season for Arizona State. And this team right here has potential to be in the running for a Pac-12 title this season for the Arizona State Sun Devils. Now take a look at number 18, another team that's fire from the perimeter, looking to see if they can find a big themselves this season. Same thing as Arizona State, happens to be the Creighton Blue Jays. Creighton coming back to the program happens to be Marcus Zagorowski, another one of these players that could very well be a National Player of the Year candidate. Zagorowski averaged over 16 points per game this past season. Also coming back, Mitch Ballock, who averaged just under 12 points per game this past season. Both these players, Zagorowski and Ballock, ranked number 2 and 3 in the Big East in 3-point shooting this past season. Also coming back for Creighton, number 3 scorer Denzel Mahoney. He'll be back as well. They're going to have a loaded roster of guards here for the Blue Jays. All they need in Omaha is just who will be the big for this team. That's the question. They could possibly have 6'11" center here, Jacob Epperson. He did not play last season due to injury. Another player they're going to be adding into the roster, a 4-star freshman recruit with Ryan Kalkbrenner. As the Blue Jays, I feel like they're going to be a fun team, lighting it up from the perimeter. They just need help inside as well. Now moving on to number 17 on the list. This happens to be the UCLA Bruins, as they got big news coming back to the program. Leading scorer Chris Smith, he'll be returning here for UCLA. He was the catalyst to last season's remarkable turnaround for the Bruins. They started off the season 8-9. They finished winning their last 7 out of 8 games to close out the season. They should be able to take that momentum once again into this year. Jalen Hill, the leading scorer for UCLA, he'll be back as well. Able to get themselves a transfer here. Top 30 recruit from the class of 2019, Johnny Juzang. He did not play many minutes last season for Kentucky, but he was granted a waiver to play sophomore season this season for UCLA, as he has a chance to prove it for the Bruins. I like UCLA to be number 1 team I predict in the Pac-12 conference, taking a much indeed steps up here, and they were just red hot last season towards the end of the year. I like them at number 17. Now move on, number 16 on the list happens to be the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Texas Tech able to benefit from a couple players getting granted a waiver here, eligible this season. The first one, Jamaris Burton from Wichita State, averaged just over 10 points per game. Going to be a good piece to add into the Red Raiders' depth this season. The big player, though, able to get via transfer. They needed a big man on the team, a rebounder. They got one from VCU. Marcus Santos Silva averaged just under 13 points per game and just under 9 rebounds per game this past season for VCU, as he's going to be sliding over into the spot of graduating senior Chris Clark from the program, the leading rebounder from this past season. Santos Silva, great scorer inside the post as well. The player that they're still awaiting a transfer from is Mac McClung, as he played at Georgetown. Georgetown's leading scorer this past season, but Mac McClung still currently listed as a sit-out transfer at this moment. As far as pieces lost in the offseason, Jamias Ramsey, He had a stellar freshman season, averaging 15 points per game. He went to the NBA draft. They also lost Davide Moretti as well, another guard, as he'll play professional basketball overseas in his native country of Italy. But Texas Tech will be getting back their number 3 and 4 scores for this upcoming season with Kyler Edwards and Terrence Shannon. Shannon averaged just under 10 points per game during his freshman season. I feel like Shannon's going to have breakout potential this year out in Lubbock. Texas Tech also bring in the program's best recruiting class with 2 top 35 recruits, 5-star shooting guard Namari Burnett, 4-star small forward Micah Peavy. And the Red Raiders here also in another transfer, Joel Tomway from UNLV. A lot of new faces for head coach Chris Beard here out in Lubbock. I like the Texas Tech Red Raiders at number 16. Still sticking with the Big 12. So we'll take a look here. Number 15 on the list goes out to the West Virginia Mountaineers. Bob Huggins with a young roster. Totally improved from what they were back in 2018-19 to this past season, as they really upped it. They get another good chance here to keep on getting better and better. West Virginia going to return 4 out of their 5 starters from this past season. A leading scorer, leading rebounder, Oscar Tshiebwe, who basically nearly averaged a double-double as a freshman. He's going to be back here for the Mountaineers, as he has the opportunity here to be one of the best players in the Big 12. Mountaineers also, I feel like they're going to be one of the toughest teams to compete on the rebounds this season for West Virginia. Oscar Tshiebwe along with Derek Culver as well. Both of these players were top 5 in the Big 12 in rebounds per game this past season. As a team, West Virginia ranked 11th nationally in college basketball and rebounding. The big question, however, is how much can they progress to be a three-point shooting team. The Mountaineers finished dead last among power conference teams last season in three-point shooting percentage, shooting the ball at a low 28.6% from behind the arc. If they can up that three-point shooting percentage and be able to drill threes, then they're going to be a dangerous team this season for sure for West Virginia. I've got them at number 15. Now take a look at number 14 on the list. This one goes out to the Tennessee Volunteers. Tennessee, I feel like, should be right back into this list after a rebuilding season. So, coming into this season, once again, John Fulkerson, as he had a strong 27-point performance towards the end of the season last year against Kentucky. He is back alongside with Josiah Jordan-James, the point guard Santiago Vescovi, and also the shot block leader from the SEC this past season, Yves Pons, will be back for the Volts, as well as he happened to withdraw his name from the NBA draft. The Volts, they're going to be a deep roster, I feel like, for head coach Rick Barnes this season, as he'll be bringing in 2 freshman 5-star guards here with a top 10 recruiting class, with Jaden Springer coming in and Keon Johnson for the Vols, along with a key transfer coming in from the Oregon Ducks as well with Victor Bailey Jr. This team looks deep from Tennessee. I've got them at number 14 in my rankings. Now at number 13, a team looking for a bounce-back type of season happens to be the North Carolina Tar Heels. They get at 13. So the story of last season, of course, if you didn't know already, season of disappointment for UNC, as they had their worst record under head coach Roy Williams in the 17th season as a head coach. UNC, though, this season, they should be back to their usual business on a consistent basis in these top 25 rankings. They did happen to lose a lot, though, in the offseason. 5 players left the team in the offseason. Of course, the most notable one being Cole Anthony, played 1 year for the Tar Heels and went to the NBA draft. Coming in, though, top 3 recruiting class in college basketball for UNC, as point guard Caleb Love will slide right over into Cole Anthony's spot, along with the 2 bigs as well coming into the program with freshmen Day'Ron Sharp and Walker Kessler. Garrison Brooks, he'll be back for his senior season, as he has potential National Player of the Year candidate as well for him, as he was one of the lone bright spots last season for UNC. Brooks averaged just under 17 points per game and 8.5 rebounds per game this past season for the Tar Heels. And they're also going to get Armando Bacot back for his sophomore season for UNC. And man, that size is going to be tough, I feel like, on the boards to compete against. They should be one of the top rebounding teams in the nation this season for North Carolina. That size of Bacot and Brooks, along with the 2 freshman centers, Sharp and Kessler, that'll be tough to compete against on the boards. Also coming back for North Carolina, Leaky Black and Anthony Harris, they should be able to take the steps up at their guard play to improve for this season. I like the Tar Heels this year to be a consistent top 25 team, unlike last season. I've got UNC and number 13 on my rankings. Now we'll still stick with the ACC here. Number 12 on the list happens to be the Florida State Seminoles. I'm going to say this. Do not sleep on the Noles this season. Florida State, they happen to lose their top 2 scorers with guards Devin Vassell and Trent Forrest. They're also going to lose 2 other players with Patrick Williams. He went to the NBA draft, and center Dominic Olanichek to graduation. But still, even losing those 4 players on the roster, I still like the pieces remaining this year for the Noles. Now, flashback to the 2019 offseason, when Fiondu Kabengele and Terrence Mann both led the Seminoles in scoring, while Devin Vassell's freshman season only averaged 4.5 points per game. In his sophomore season, though, Devin Vassell took the much-needed jump. He went from being the number 9 scorer to the number 1 scorer his sophomore season, and now Devin Vassell's in the conversation to be a top 15 NBA draft pick for the 2020 draft. So this past season, the Seminoles, they were one of the deepest teams in college basketball with 9 players averaging over 4 points per game. I feel like somebody here, a hidden star from the team, is going to jump up, and he's going to lead the team this season that played last year. Heading back to Florida State will be the 3rd leading scorer, MJ Walker, coming back to the Seminoles, along with Malik Osborne and Raekwon Gray, the 2 forwards. And they're going to add in as well 5 additional players returning from last season's roster as well that played last season. The big transfer, or the big recruit that they got, though, heading over to Florida State, is a power forward. His name is Scotty Barnes. He is a 5-star freshman heading to Tallahassee, and Scotty Barnes instantly should make an impact right away here for head coach Leonard Hamilton. I like Florida State right in the top of the ACC this season, along with Duke, UNC, and Virginia. I've got Florida State at number 12 on my rankings. Now we'll move on to number 11, as I've got Sparty here, the Michigan State Spartans this season at number 11. They did have a really big major losses in the offseason. Of course, the biggest one is trying to fill the shoes of the next point guard to replace Cassius Winston. That is a huge question mark there for Michigan State that we still cannot answer right now, which we'll see what happens heading into the season. Also for the Spartans, massive loss. Double machine, Xavier Tillman. He went to the NBA draft. Massive loss there for Sparty. But they're going to get back their number 3 scorer, Aaron Henry, who happened to withdraw from the NBA draft. Good news here for Michigan State. Joshua Langford, who did not play last season due to injury. He averaged 15 points per game in 13 games back in the 2018-19 season. Langford has the chance to return this season for Michigan State. That'll be massive here if Sparty is able to get back a fully healthy Joshua Langford into the lineup. And of course, the question mark about the point guard position, Foster Loyer, he hasn't been able to take the appropriate steps up in the right direction, as he was supposed to be the answer to fill the shoes for Cassius Winston. But I'm going to predict that the new point guard for my prediction will be Mark Rocket Watts, the best fit in my opinion here. Rocket Watts went off last season. Last 4 games, he averaged 17.8 points per game, and he has breakout potential in my opinion this year for Michigan State. Coming back to the roster, these players are really going to step it up this season for Michigan State as well, which I expect them to do. Marcus Bingham Jr. and Malik Hall, and also a key transfer coming over for Tom Izzo's squad is he's going to get a good one coming in from Marquette here with Joey Hauser. Shot the ball just under 43% from 3-point range for the Golden Eagles back in 2018-19. If Joshua Langford comes back to his old form here for Michigan State, then the rest of this cast also, if they can take the step up, then Sparty here, I feel like this team, they can make a deep run into the 2020 NCAA tournament. Got them at number 11 right now. At number 10, we take a look at this on the list. It happens to be the Duke Blue Devils. At number 10 here. So Duke, they happen to lose a ton of pieces in the offseason as 7 players departed from the roster. The 3 most notable players, the top 3 scorers, went to the NBA draft. Vernon Carey Jr., Trey Jones, and Cassius Stanley. But heading back to Duke will be 4 players from last season's roster. 2 of these players were starters, Matthew Hurt and Wendell Moore. To replace the losses, though, heading to the draft, Duke loaded up. Top 3 recruiting class in college basketball. They'll be bringing in 5-star recruits with Jalen Johnson, Jeremy Roach, and DJ Stewart, along with 3 4-star recruits as well, Jamin Brakefield, Mark Williams, and Henry Coleman III. Duke, the big question is who will step up, who will lead this team this season? Can it be Matthew Hurt and or Wendell Moore that can take the appropriate steps up to lead the Blue Devils this season here? I like them at number 10 right now on the list. Now we'll move on to number 9. In a loaded Big Ten conference, retains the entire starting lineup for the Wisconsin Badgers. What a turnaround by Wisconsin here. They start out the season with a 5-5 record. They finished on an 8-game winning streak to win a share of the Big Ten regular season title. And their roster, once again, will be back, as they're going to be loaded for this upcoming season. So they happen to lose only one player to graduation. Their number 6 scorer, Brevin Pritzel, coming back to Wisconsin, will be for Nate Reavers, who averaged over 13 points per game, along with a lean forward, Demetric Trice, and Brad Davison, as Trice and Davison are the guards of the team. And also on the team is center Micah Potter as well, as he's going to be back for the Badgers, as he shot the ball 57% from the floor during the final 5 games of the season. Wisconsin, they got an experienced roster right here, 6 seniors in this loaded Big Ten conference. I like the Badgers to be number 9 on my predictions. Predicting here in the rankings, number 8. Goes out to Big Blue Nation, the Kentucky Wildcats here. Got some big news for you guys for BBN right here. Kentucky this week acquiring one of the best players in the transfer portal. It is official. 7-foot center from Wake Forest, Olivier Sarr, has been granted a waiver, and he is eligible for Kentucky this season. This is massive news for the Wildcats, what Kentucky fans had been hoping for. They were in desperate need in the offseason of a center. They got the top transfer in all college basketball here with Olivier Sarr. As for the Kentucky newcomers, the Wildcats will be bringing in the number 1 ranked recruiting class in all college basketball. Happens to be 6 top 100 recruits here on the list. The player to really watch out for, B.J. Boston, a small forward, as he is the one that could be breakout potential, possible player of the year candidate as well for B.J. Boston, along with another solid player here with Terrence Clark as well. Those are 2 top 10 recruits with Boston and Clark coming in. Kentucky also going to add in the point guard, Devin Askew, along with a power forward with Isaiah Jackson and another power forward with Lance Ware. They also get a small forward with Cameron Fletcher, who's a top 60 recruit as well. And Creighton, grad transfer, Davion Mintz. He's going to be the player that's going to be able to provide some of that experience along with Olivier Sarr in the roster this season, as well as the Davion Mintz transferring over to Kentucky. The only player returning here that should be able to take a huge step up this season is Keon Brooks Jr. He'll be back for Kentucky here, looks to take a step up his sophomore season. A bunch of new faces under Coach Cal here, which means the possibility of a lot of potential NBA draft prospects for the class of 2021. I like Kentucky here at number 8 on the list. We will take a look here on number 7. This team, if you paid attention to my rankings in June, this team is the biggest mover in my rankings since my last video in June here. So they went up 28 spots in the last rankings video, as they were at number 35. In the last rankings video, they go up to number 7 just like that, with unfinished business coming back here, with the biggest shock of the NBA draft to withdraw happened to be Ayo Dosunmu, with unfinished business coming back to Illinois alongside with his big man Kofi Cockburn, both withdrawing to come back for the Fighting Illini, as they led one of the biggest surprises here in college basketball in the off-season, and that's why the Illini is one of the biggest rides are on the list here. But now they're a top 10 team, and this team right here has the chance to make a statement to the NCAA this season that the Big Ten will be the toughest conference, and Illinois took the step up with these 2 players back. They only happened to lose 2 players last season from their roster, which happened to be the number 3 scorer, Andres Feliz, to graduation. Also their number 5 scorer, Alan Griffin, as well. He transferred over to Syracuse. And all here, Illinois, they're going to get back 4 starters with Dosunmu, potential National Player of the Year candidate, Coburn, Trent Frazier, and Georgi Bershanishvili, all heading back this season to Illinois. And Illini as well, adding in a couple key 4-star recruits into the mix with Adam Miller and Andre Curbelo. Illinois last went to the NCAA tournament back in 2013. They should by far surpass that this season, with potential to have a 2005 type-like season all over again for the Illinois Fighting Illini. I've got them here at number 7 on the list. Now we'll take a look here at number 6, as I've got the Virginia Cavaliers at 6 on the rankings. So it's 7'1" center Jay Huff, who happened to be the number 4 scorer this past season. He'll be back for Virginia, and Virginia, they should be improved in my opinion this season with their offenses. They lacked firepower offensively. They were the best defense in college basketball this past season, but coming into the program, Sam Hauser, a sit-out transfer last season, played for Marquette back in 2018-19, and he should have a massive impact in this offense here to help out them a ton. As Sam Hauser shot the ball 40% from three-point range during his 3 seasons for the Marquette Golden Eagles. Mamadi Diakite, he graduated from the program as Sam Hauser, and most likely replace Mamadi Diakite at the forward position. Other than Diakite, the Cavaliers only expected to lose one other player, Braxton Key, as well as this Virginia team still should be one of the toughest teams defensively to try to score on for this upcoming season. They're going to retain 3 of their starters, heading back to Virginia. Kihei Clark, the point guard, Tomas Walantansai, and the shooting guard as well, Casey Morsell. He should be able to take some big steps up this season to improve more for Virginia. Cavaliers also bringing in 2 4-star recruits into the mix. Jabari Abdur-Rahim coming in, and along with Reese Beekman as well. If the Cavaliers can translate last season's defense over to this season, along with a much improved offense, it looks like for this season, this team's going to be tough, and they have a chance to make a deep run and possibly retain their defending national champion status here. I like Virginia at number 6. And now we're down to the final 5 on the list. As we take a look at number 5, happens to be the Kansas Jayhawks. I got right here. So 2 major losses in the offseason. Point guard, leading scorer Davon Dotson decided he would enter the NBA draft. Also their big man, Udoka Azubuike, also graduated from Kansas and went to the NBA draft as well. Azubuike led college basketball last season in a shooting percentage, 74.8%, shot the ball from the floor, but even with losing their top 2 scorers, this team still looks deep for this upcoming season, as should be able to be one of the top defensive teams once again this season. Heading back to the Jayhawks, Marcus Garrett, Ochai Agbaji, David McCormick all coming back here. Coming off a Defensive Player of the Year award for 2020 was Marcus Garrett. He'll be the top pick in the preseason once again to repeat that feat in 2021. Guard Christian Braun. He is the one to watch out for. I feel like he's going to improve this season. He showed flashes of star potential from behind the arc for Kansas. He made 6 3-point shots against Kansas State, 4 3-point shots against Oklahoma State. Also coming back to the program, sophomore small forward Tristan Enaruna looking to make the jump this season, as well as the Jayhawks bringing in a key recruit, 5-star freshman shooting guard Bryce Thompson into the mix. This team's going to be undersized, I feel like, but they'll be loaded right on the wings this season. Still have a deep roster here for the Jayhawks. I like them at number 5. Now we'll move over on the list here, number 4. I predict for this season will be the Villanova Wildcats. So Villanova only losing 1 player to the NBA draft, which was expected here with Saddiq Bey, the leading 3-point shooter in the Big East this past season. Aside from Saddiq Bey, everybody else is back, as they're going to get back 4 starters: Colin Gillespie, Jermaine Samuels, Justin Moore, and Jeremiah Robinson Earl. All 40 starters averaged over 10 points per game this past season for Villanova. Also adding into the mix as well will be back junior Cole Swider. He should be able to continue to improve here for the Wildcats. They're going to add in a low-key transfer here they got at guard coming in from Tulane. He averaged just under 17 points per game during the 2018-19 season for the Green Wave. His name is Caleb Daniels. This team here, they should be solid once again defensively for the Villanova Wildcats. And basically, how well Villanova does, that's going to be determined on the 3-ball. They take a bunch of threes as far as 3-point attempts per game with Jay Wright's squad, but it's going to depend, I feel like, how efficient they are with a 3-ball. If they are dropping threes left and right on the court, this team is going to be one tough team to beat here. I like Villanova this season at number 4 for my prediction. Now we're down to 3. We take a look at the number 3 team on the list. I predict here the Gonzaga Bulldogs, as Gonzaga happens to have their number 2 and 4 scorers coming back. Big news here. Corey Kispert, Joel Ayayi back to Gonzaga. They did suffer a massive loss, however. Leading scorer Filip Petrushev, he decided to play professional basketball overseas in Serbia. But Gonzaga losing some players in the offseason. Killian Tilly, Adam Gilder, Ryan Woolridge, but also able to retain players as well. Drew Timme, he's the player that I feel like is going to have a massive breakout season here for Gonzaga, as he averaged 9.8 points per game, 5.4 rebounds per game during his freshman season. And also this team is just loaded, full of young studs on the roster, ready to prove themselves, that didn't have like much playing time this past season, but should be able to up it a bunch this season here for the Zags. Coming back to the program, 6'10" big man Omar Ballo, along with sophomores Anton Watson and Pavel Zakharov. Head coach Mark Few, he got a couple nice offseason pickups as well. He got Aaron Cook, who is a guard. He transferred over from Southern Illinois to Gonzaga. And also the Bulldogs bringing in a top 10 recruiting class, highlighted here by the highest ranked recruit in program history. 5-star point guard Jalen Suggs coming into the program, and also 2 4-star recruits as well with Dominic Harris, a shooting guard, and a small forward with Julian Strother. At most here, I've got Gonzaga losing at most probably 5 games at most this season for the Zags. I like them number 3 here on the list for my top 25. And now we're down to 2. So we take a look at the number 2 team I've got on the list predicted for the season, the Iowa Hawkeyes, looking for a historic season here under head coach Fran McCaffery. Big news, Luka Garza. He will come back for his senior season. He ranked 5th in college basketball in points scored per game. He averaged 23.9 points per game along with 9.8 rebounds per game this past season. And man, did he take the steps up last season from what he had back in 2018-19. He is my preseason pick to win the 2021 National Player of the Year. The Hawkeyes, in my opinion, going to bring back one of the most explosive starting 5 rosters here scoring-wise in the nation with the return of Luka Garza. Joining Garza will be the guards. Joe Wieskamp, who averaged 14 points per game this past season, along with C.J. Frederick, who was injured late in this past season, but as a freshman, Frederick led the Big Ten in three-point shooting percentage. Also, coming back on the roster, Joe Toussaint, Connor McCaffrey as well, and getting a healthy Jordan Bohannon back, that is huge. Able to be granted another season of eligibility. Bohannon only played 10 games last season, but he was a starter during his first 3 seasons for the Hawkeyes. When healthy, Jordan Bohannon is lethal from the outside. He has got some dangerous range. And this team's perimeter, they got players that can provide a spark. With Bohannon, as C.J. Frederick led the Big Ten in three-point shooting percentage, 46% as a freshman. It's just, if Iowa's defense can tighten up here, they got a legitimate chance to land themselves their first ever national title, as their offense is going to give opponents fits this season, trying to guard them here. I like the Iowa Hawkeyes with a historic season here at number 2. And that means that there's one more team on the list remaining here. That my prediction for number 1 this season happens to be the Baylor Bears. Baylor coming back, big news in the offseason. Jared Butler, Masio Teague heading back here to Waco, which means that they're going to stay at number 1, which they've been at number 1 for my rankings in May and June as well. So the Baylor Bears happen to spend 5 weeks this past season ranked at number 1. They're going to get back their top 3 scorers from this past season. Jared Butler is absolutely clutch. He has national player candidate potential as well, with Jared Butler averaged 16 points per game this past season. This team was led through their defense last season. That was a strong suit here, but whenever they needed it the most towards close games, they were able to put it in the W column because they made big shots when it counted it the most. As far as Baylor, they did happen to lose their leading rebounder, Freddie Gillespie, and also their guard, Devontae Bandu, from this past season, but the player here to step up and be a pretty good 6th man in the roster off the bench this season for Baylor, I predict, would happen to be, for the Baylor Bears, Matthew Mayer. So he has a great chance to step up this season. Mark Vitale, he'll be back as well for Baylor. He was named the finalist for the 2020 Defensive Player of the Year award. And the Bears as well will be adding in 2 4-star recruits, power forward Dane Danja, along with point guard L.J. Cryer onto the roster. So the Bears also getting some perimeter help from a transfer from Presbyterian named Adam Flager. He averaged just under 16 points per game back in 2018-19 for Presbyterian for Flagler. And as far as what this team can accomplish here, they're going to be led this season by the guard Jared Butler, as he was clutch all last season, making big shots when Baylor needed it the most. And I've got the Baylor Bears here on my list here at number 1. So that's a wrap here to this video. My final rankings of the college basketball preseason top 25 predictions for the 2020-21 college basketball season. This video recorded in October of 2020. Before you head out, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Also, ring the notification bell so you can be notified about future contents, along with my college basketball play-by-play live streams when they start up as well. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, as this is Behind the Arc Basketball.